Good morning. We're all talking about loving one another. I did a lot of research out of the Bible and on Google to get the information that I got written down today. So I'm going to be reading to you something I found, a word I found. And it's a Greek word called allelon. And it's allelon. And it means that when that person does one of the directives to another person, that person should do it back. Allelon, pronounced allelon, is not a verb. It's not a specific something that we are told to do. It is who we are told to do many things to, for, and with. This one Greek word is sprinkled throughout the New Testament, like salt on popcorn. The word is not, it is, okay, I'm sorry, I can't even read my own writing. The word is used about 100 times over half the time in the form of positive commands. What word could be so important that it glues together the verses that make up Jesus' words? And the apostle instructions is allelon. The Greek word allelon appears 100 times in the New Testament. Most often, it is translated one another or each other. It expresses mutually and community that is an inextricable part of our faith. The New Testament exhorts us to care for one another, serve one another, admonish one another, bear with one another, and pray for one another. All of these and the many one another's in the text are simply more specific ways to love one another. When we love one another, we benefit both others and ourselves. We experience community. In that fellowship, we experience God's love more fully. We live in a culture that highly values independence and autonomy. We can't change that. But if we are to understand the Bible, we must recognize that the Bible was written to a culture completely opposite of ours in this regard. When we need the Bible, when we read the Bible, we tend to read the word, you, as singular, as if God were giving us individual instructions for our separate, private, custom relationship with Him. When individual practices are important, while individual practices are important, they are incomplete. If we focus only on our private practices of faith, we will misinterpret the text. The word you in the Bible is most frequently plural. I had a revised Southern version. It would translate the pronoun as y'all. Y'all remember the word y'all.
Yeah.
In the Old English of the oldest Bible translations, thou. The unfortunate problem with not using such archaic language is we aren't sure whether you mean thou or y'all. Some have to look at each other at the context, or look at the context in the Bible. For example, 1 Corinthians 15:2 says, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast that word which I preached you, unless you believed in vain. By this gospel you are saved, if you hold firmly to the word I preached to you, otherwise you have believed in vain. If any verse touches our individualistic Western sensitivities, this is the one. So Paul's instructions to hold firmly assume a context of community and family. And think of it, if you are part of a fellowship that is exhorting one another, encouraging one another, praying for one another, and loving one another, Doesn't that encourage each person to hold firmly, to think to their faith with more strength and conviction than if they were each doing it in isolation? In our work, in our weak moments, if those around us are holding firmly, we're supported and held up. With most world religions, urge their followers to charitable and kind to fellow human beings. Christianity elevates love of others as equally important to, and indeed, an expression of love for God himself. 1 John 4:12 says, "No one has seen God at any time. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love has been perfected in us."
Amen.
Amen. God calls us to love him by loving one another in this way. Perhaps Jesus' prayer that we might be one, just as he and the Father are one, will be an answer to everything that's going on. The outworking of love. 1 John 3:16-23 labels or titles the outworking of love. By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoever has this world's goods and sees is broken indeed, and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in the truth. Sorry. I can't go to change pages. And by this we know that we are the truth, and shall assure our hearts before him. For if our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence towards God. And whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and those things that are pleasing in his sight. And this is the commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another